part 1, we heard how staff at Bristol Zoo are preparing their female gorilla Namoki for her departure to a new home in Belfast Zoo as part of a breeding programme. Later, we'll see her farewell party as she heads to her new home. While Namoki is preparing to leave, others are settling in to their new home. The lemur enclosure is sealed off to the public during the winter, but these girls have just moved in and are making the place their own. Having come from another zoo in Jersey, they've replaced a group of bachelors who've moved to another collection.
It's really important to breed lemurs because they are an endangered species. There's over 100 different types of lemurs, and a lot of them are vulnerable to extinction, endangered or critically endangered. So there's a real risk that they might go extinct in our lifetime. So it is important to breed them in captivity in case the worst does happen out in the wild. But they're also great flagship species as well to kind of encourage people to want to conserve their native species, their native habitats out in Madagascar.
We're seeing a lot of them sort of posing on the trees with their arms out, tummies up to the sun. What are their characteristics?
Oh, well, ring-tailed lemurs are brilliant sunbathers, so they really do enjoy warming themselves up in the sunshine. So they will actually sit and direct their tummies right at the sun, and they like to kind of splay their arms out in a kind of Buddha meditation pose and warm up first thing in the morning.
And with lemurs, the women are the bosses, right?
Yes, they are. The males are at the bottom of the pecking order and the females are the bosses, and there's quite a strict hierarchy amongst the females as well.
How does that work?
Well, we have a dominant female, and then we have females that kind of go below her, and the dominant female rules the roost, so she's often the first to food, she often is the first to breed with the male if she comes into season, but she also manages the females as well and helps them to keep into a secure family unit.
What other sort of characteristics do lemurs do that make people love them so much?
Well, despite the fact they're very cute and fluffy looking, they're really fun to watch as well. They're very charismatic animals, so they're quite playful, they're very sociable as well, and they're really interesting to look like. They look a little bit different from other primates. They've got the kind of wet noses because they still rely quite heavily on scent, and they've also got their fab fluffy tails as well. Ringtails have black and white striped tails, and they help lemurs because lemurs like to jump from branch to branch, and they help them kind of balance as they're jumping, so they're great fun to watch.
You've moved these over from Jersey. What sort of what happens to go through with that move?
It's an interesting process, and it was managed by quite strict legislation. So they'll have a few kind of pre-export checks before they leave to make sure they're in good health, and then they'll come over on the plane or the ferry, and then when they arrive here, they're actually in quarantine for a short period, again to make sure that they're not going to introduce any diseases into our collection. And once they've got the great get-go from the vets, then they can come in and be mixed with other species and just get on with things and settle in.
Maintenance is one of the most important and time-consuming jobs at the zoo, making sure that the inhabitants have the best possible living conditions. So we joined Aquarium curator Johnny Rudd as he prepared to clean the glass in full view of the visiting public.
We have to maintain perfect water quality for these guys, so anything that blocks the filters or any sort of food that's been uneaten that's sunk to the bottom, we need to be taking out. We've got big filter systems here which do clear it, but we still get a lot of algae growth and things like that. So it's important that the windows are kept clean for the public so they can see through. And yeah.
So how long does the cleaning and the jobs take? You've got a lot of tanks to do, haven't you?
Yeah, we have a lot of tanks. This is one of 16, so this one takes up to about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how green it is. In the middle of the summer, because we're in a glass house, it gets really bad because of the light, obviously. But this time of year, not too bad. Probably about an hour to do.
This building itself used to be the bear.
It did, yeah. This used to be the bear pit itself. So up until the late 70s, I believe it was, or early 70s, this used to be home to bears. There was just a pole down the middle of the tank, which you can still see today. It's just outside the aquarium there. But yeah, you used to have a family of bears in. People used to walk around the top here and just look down on them, which is, I'm sure you'll agree, this is much better than a bear pit.
a month after we first saw them, and the baby meerkats have grown quite a lot. Meerkats can live up to 14 years in captivity. That's twice as long as in the wild. They come from Botswana, Namibia and South Africa and can live in groups of up to 50 members. In the butterfly house, visitors can see the whole cycle of life, from eggs to caterpillars to chrysalis and butterflies. The caterpillars shed their skin 5 times as they grow, the 5th time they pupate. Back outside we find another of the endangered species being helped by Bristol Zoo. These are okapis with their striking patterned legs. They're closely related to the giraffe family, and apart from in captivity, they are only found in the rainforest in Central Africa and need our help to survive.
Yes, these are okapi. They come from Central Africa, endangered species. Bristol Zoo have been working with them for about 50 years now. We started keeping okapi here in the early 1960s. So behind us we have a mother and a calf. They're separated at the moment, but it's part of a very important European breeding programme. We've going to be moving them. The female just behind me here, the young female, Katusha, was born here last year, and she's now moving to Chester Zoo as part of the breeding programme. And her mother will be moving to our new park at Wild Place at Cribbs Causeway, and that's where we're concentrating in future our breeding programme for okapi. It's where we used to breed them years ago when the Hollywood estate was a privately managed estate by the zoo, and it's important now to give them a little bit more space. We're bringing in another male from Chester Zoo this week, moving Katusha, the young female, to Chester as well. So there's a bit of moving around to give us actually 4 okapi with the potential for more breeding. It lives in the central rainforests of Central Africa, nowhere else in the world. It's a part of the world that has a lot of political problems, a lot of maybe civil war and strife. So we always have a bit of a problem and a bit of concern about numbers. It's also because they live in difficult, thick rainforest. It's quite difficult to assess the numbers. So we know they are endangered. We know that they need to be managed in captivity in Europe and indeed worldwide, and we're part of that programme.
And do they live with other okapis, or how do they work?
They're more inclined to live on their own, mothers and calves together, males and females together if a female's an oestrus and wanting to breed. Sometimes you'll find 3 or 4 animals together, but it's usually if they're feeding or if there's a particular type of food or type of leaf or fruit that they're after for a particular time of the year. But most of the time they're living either on their own or with a baby.
There's only actually 15 of these animals in captivity in the UK. The reason for that is that it takes quite a long time to breed them and make the numbers up, because they are actually pregnant for 14 months, which is quite a long time. But these are part of the European breeding programme, so Lodger obviously came from Bristol, but we do have animals which came from Europe. So our other female came from Rotterdam Zoo in the Netherlands. So they do come from all over, and they are listed as endangered, so they are a really important animal for us to have.
And what do you hope to do with them up here now?
Our plan is to obviously breed from the females we have, so give us 2 years, and hopefully small okapi feet will be running across the floor is our ideal situation.
And then will you keep them here, or will they get shared out throughout sort of Europe, really?
Yeah, they all need to be moved on at some point because they have to be kept genetically viable, so they can't be related and inbred. So that will mean that our young will go elsewhere, be it that we get other ones that come here or swap animals around. It all depends on our breeding programme.
Meanwhile, back on Gorilla Island, Namoki probably thinks it's her birthday because the keepers arranged a special party for her. But this is to mark her imminent departure for Belfast Zoo, where it's hoped she will start her own family soon. The mysteries of a cardboard box and some edible treats is enough to give her an enjoyable day and to let visitors say their goodbyes. In the morning, she'll be on her way across the Irish Sea, and the latest chapter in Bristol Zoo's conservation work will be complete.